The Bitcoin Bible, everything you need to know about Bitcoin. Imagine a form of money that no government can print more of, no bank can freeze, and no company can rewrite. Imagine money you can send across the world in minutes without asking permission. Imagine a network with no CEO, no headquarters, and no office to raid, yet it keeps running day after day. That is Bitcoin. Bitcoin isn't just internet money. It's a monetary invention, a global settlement network, and a public system of verification anyone can inspect. Some people treat it like a savings technology. Others treat it like a political statement. Many treat it like an investment. But before any of that, Bitcoin is a tool, and tools are only as powerful as the person who understands how they work. This audiobook is not about hype. It is not about price predictions. It is about what Bitcoin is, why it exists, what makes it valuable, what can go wrong, and what you should know before you ever buy, hold, or use it. By the time you finish, you'll understand Bitcoin as a system, not a slogan. Welcome to the Bitcoin Bible. Money is a technology. It's not just paper in your wallet or numbers in an app. It's the tool humans use to coordinate value across time and across distance. When money is strong, trade becomes easier, savings becomes meaningful, and planning becomes possible. When money is weak, life becomes a treadmill. Prices rise, savings erode, and people work harder just to stand still. Across history, societies gravitated toward money that held value, could be trusted, and could be verified. Gold worked well because it was hard to make, durable, and widely recognized. Paper money became dominant because it was portable and convenient, but it introduced a new problem. Whoever controls the printing press controls the supply. Eventually, the modern world arrived at digital money, but most digital money is still controlled by intermediaries. It sits behind bank accounts, payment networks, and policies. It can be paused, frozen, limited, and inflated. It relies on trust in institutions, and trust is not always rewarded. Bitcoin was created as a response to that reality. In the shadow of the financial crisis, an anonymous creator known as Satoshi Nakamoto released a new idea: a peer-to-peer form of electronic money that didn't require a bank to function. The design was not a small upgrade. It was a different philosophy. Instead of trusting a central authority to maintain the ledger honestly, Bitcoin would let a decentralized network maintain it through rules, cryptography, and economic incentives. To understand Bitcoin, you have to understand its core breakthrough. It solved the problem of creating digital scarcity without needing a central gatekeeper. Digital files are easy to copy. If money were just a file, anyone could duplicate it and spend it twice. That is the double spend problem. In traditional finance, banks solve this by keeping private ledgers. You trust them to subtract money from one account and add it to another. Bitcoin solved it differently by creating a public ledger that anyone can verify, and by designing a system where rewriting the past becomes extremely expensive. That public ledger is commonly called the blockchain. The blockchain is a record of transactions grouped into blocks and chained together over time. Each block contains recent transactions, and each new block builds on the history before it. The important point is not the word blockchain. The important point is what it represents. Shared truth without a single owner. The network has one history that it agrees on, and it agrees through consensus. Consensus is the process by which thousands of computers, spread across the world, coordinate on the same version of reality. Bitcoin's consensus mechanism is proof of work. Proof of work is simple in spirit, even if it can sound technical at first. Miners compete to solve a computational puzzle. The first miner to solve it earns the right to add the next block of transactions to the ledger. The network verifies that the solution is valid. If it is valid, the block is accepted, and the miner receives a reward. The puzzle is not valuable because it produces meaning. It is valuable because it produces cost. Proof of work makes it expensive to cheat. If someone tries to rewrite Bitcoin's transaction history, they must outcompete the honest network by producing more proof of work than everyone else combined, which requires massive computation and energy. This turns the ledger into something like hardened concrete. The deeper a transaction sits in the chain, the harder it is to remove without enormous expense. This is why Bitcoin can act as a settlement layer. transactions become more final over time. When a transaction is included in a block, it is confirmed. As more blocks are built on top of it, it becomes increasingly impractical to reverse. It's not the same kind of finality as handing someone cash, but it becomes final in a different way through compounding security. Now we reach the feature most people have heard about, scarcity. Bitcoin has a fixed supply cap. Only 21 million Bitcoin will ever exist. That is not a marketing promise. It is part of the rules. New Bitcoin enters circulation as part of the mining reward, but that reward decreases on a predictable schedule. Approximately every 4 years, the reward is cut in half in an event known as the halving. This gradual reduction continues until new issuance becomes negligible. The result is a system with a transparent, predictable supply curve. The world has never had a global money whose supply schedule is this public and this resistant to political change. Scarcity matters because money that can be inflated can silently tax savings. When new units are created, the purchasing power of existing units tends to dilute over time. That doesn't always show up immediately, and it doesn't always show up evenly, but it shows up. Bitcoin takes a different path. It makes supply an engineering problem instead of a political decision. It turns monetary policy into code. Bitcoin is also extremely divisible. You do not need to buy a whole Bitcoin. Each Bitcoin can be divided into 100 million units called satoshis, often shortened to sats. This matters because it reframes participation. People look at a whole Bitcoin price and assume they missed their chance, when the more accurate reality is that Bitcoin is a unit system, not a single coin you must own entirely. You can hold a fraction, use a fraction, and save a fraction. Ownership in Bitcoin is not the same as ownership in a bank account. When you have money in a bank, you have an account entry. The bank has the money and owes you access under their rules. With Bitcoin, ownership is defined by control of cryptographic keys. The blockchain records which addresses control which funds, and the private key is what authorizes spending from those addresses. A wallet does not store Bitcoin. A wallet stores the keys that let you move Bitcoin. This is where the responsibility begins. If you control your keys, you control your Bitcoin. If you do not control your keys, you are trusting someone else. When you buy Bitcoin on an exchange and leave it there, you have an IOU. You may be able to withdraw at any moment, but you are still exposed to the exchange's solvency, security, policies, and compliance obligations. If withdrawals are paused, if the platform is hacked, if it fails, or if access is restricted, your Bitcoin can become unreachable. That's why a famous phrase exists in the Bitcoin world. Not your keys, not your coins. It is not meant as fear. It is meant as clarity. Bitcoin offers the option of self-custody, which means holding your own keys rather than outsourcing control to a company. Self-custody can be empowering, but it also removes the safety nets you are used to. There is no customer service line for the network. There is no password reset for a lost private key. Bitcoin is a system built for sovereignty, and sovereignty requires competence. Wallets generally fall into two categories. Hot wallets are connected to the internet. They are convenient for spending and small balances. Cold wallets keep keys offline, often through specialized hardware. They are designed for long-term storage and reduced exposure to online threats. Cold storage can dramatically reduce hacking risk, but it increases the importance of backups and physical security. Most wallets provide a recovery phrase, sometimes called a seed phrase. This is a set of words that can recreate your wallet and restore access to funds if your device is lost. The recovery phrase is both your lifeline and your greatest vulnerability. If someone obtains it, they can take your Bitcoin. If you lose it, you may lose access permanently. Protecting it is not optional. It is foundational. Bitcoin is transparent by design, but it is not automatically anonymous. The blockchain is public. Addresses are not your name, but transactions can be traced through patterns, and identity can be linked through exchanges, merchants, or careless reuse of addresses. Privacy is possible, but it requires intention, good practice, and understanding the trade-offs. The mature view is that Bitcoin is auditable and verifiable, while privacy depends heavily on how you interact with the network. So why does Bitcoin have value? Bitcoin's value emerges from a set of properties that are rare in combination. It is scarce in a way that is algorithmic. It is global in a way that is native to the internet. It is secured by proof of work, which makes attacks expensive and history hard to rewrite. It is decentralized enough that no single party can easily seize the whole network. It is permissionless enough that anyone can participate. It is verifiable enough that you don't need to trust a bank's internal ledger. And it has grown a network effect, meaning the more people and institutions that recognize and use it, the more resilient and useful it becomes. Still, Bitcoin comes with serious realities. One of them is volatility. Bitcoin's price can move dramatically. That volatility is partly the cost of being a relatively young asset going through global price discovery. It trades around the clock, across continents, and it is influenced by macroeconomic forces, sentiment, liquidity cycles, and adoption waves. Volatility can reward patience, but it can punish people who treat Bitcoin like a slot machine. It often breaks those who borrow money to buy it, chase momentum, or panic during drawdowns. Scams are another reality. Because Bitcoin can be transferred directly, scammers love it. Fake customer support accounts, fake giveaways, impersonators, and guaranteed return schemes are everywhere. The rule is simple. If someone promises guaranteed profit, it's a trap. If someone asks for your seed phrase, it's a theft attempt. If something requires urgency and secrecy, it's usually a con. Then there are the operational risks that many people ignore. Sending Bitcoin to the wrong address can be irreversible. Losing your recovery phrase can be permanent. Storing funds on a compromised device can be catastrophic. In Bitcoin, the biggest risk is often not the network, it's the human. Another point people must understand is the difference between Bitcoin and the broader world of crypto. Many digital assets exist, and some are interesting experiments. But Bitcoin is unusual because it has no central issuer, no CEO, and no company steering it like a product. It is more conservative by design. Changes happen slowly. Security and decentralization are prioritized over rapid feature expansion. Many tokens behave more like startup equity or speculative chips than like a global monetary base. Treating all of it as the same category is a mistake. Bitcoin also has scaling solutions beyond the base layer. One of the most important is the Lightning Network. Bitcoin's base layer is optimized for security and decentralization, not for handling millions of tiny payments per second. Lightning is a second-layer network that allows fast and cheap transactions by creating payment channels that settle back to the main chain. It is still evolving, but it represents an important idea. Bitcoin can be both a foundational settlement system and, through layers, a practical payment experience for everyday use. So what is Bitcoin becoming? It began with the dream of peer-to-peer electronic cash. Over time, many people started using it primarily as a store of value, a digital savings technology, and a hedge against monetary debasement. Institutions began evaluating it as an alternative asset, some as a treasury reserve, some as a diversification tool. In countries with unstable currencies, Bitcoin can become something even more urgent, a way to preserve purchasing power and move value when traditional systems fail. Bitcoin's meaning shifts based on context, but the underlying technology remains the same. If you want practical wisdom, it comes down to mindset. Learn before you leap, respect volatility, avoid leverage, prioritize security, think in long-time horizons. Separate price talk from the fundamental invention. Bitcoin is not a religion, and it is not a guaranteed path to riches. It is a tool that changes what is possible in money, and it rewards people who take responsibility for understanding it. Now let's correct the most common myths. Many say Bitcoin has no value because it is not backed by anything. But money is not valuable because it is physically backed. Money is valuable because people trust its properties and accept it as a reliable medium for value. Gold isn't valuable because it is backed by something else. It is valuable because it is scarce, durable, and historically trusted. Bitcoin similarly has properties that people find valuable, and its network effect grows as more participants recognize those properties. Others say Bitcoin is only for criminals, but criminals use every payment tool available, including cash, banks, and gift cards. The existence of misuse does not define the tool's primary purpose. Bitcoin is a neutral network. Like the internet, it can be used for good or bad. The question is how society chooses to integrate it, regulate on-ramps, and enforce laws without destroying legitimate use. Another myth is that it's too late. That mindset comes from thinking Bitcoin is a one-time bet. Bitcoin is a network. People can participate in fractions. People can participate through learning, through saving small amounts, through building with layers, through using it as a settlement tool, and through gradually understanding what it changes. The better question is not whether you are early or late. The better question is whether you understand what it is and why it matters. There is also a myth that Bitcoin is easy. It is easy to buy. It is not always easy to hold responsibly. It asks you to become more intentional about risk, security, and long-term thinking. That is why Bitcoin can feel like a mirror. It reflects your habits. If you are impulsive, it punishes impulsiveness. If you chase hype, it punishes chasing. If you ignore fundamentals, it punishes ignorance. But if you learn, practice good security, and think long-term, it can become one of the most durable tools for storing value in a digital age. At its deepest level, Bitcoin is a debate about trust. In the old world, you trusted institutions to keep the ledger honest and the supply stable. In Bitcoin, you trust open rules and verification. You trust math more than politics. You trust distributed incentives more than centralized promises. That doesn't make Bitcoin perfect. It makes it different. It offers an alternative system where the rules are visible and enforcement is automated by the network itself. So what should people truly know about Bitcoin? They should know that it is not just an asset, but a protocol. They should know that its scarcity is engineered. They should know that its security is bought with proof of work. They should know that self-custody is power and also burden. They should know that the biggest dangers are often scams, leverage, and personal mistakes. They should know that the base layer is built for settlement and that layers like Lightning aim to make payments faster. They should know that Bitcoin cannot be uninvented because the idea has already escaped into the world. If you decide Bitcoin is not for you, let that be a decision made with understanding, not with memes or fear. And if you decide to participate, do it wisely. Learn how wallets work. Learn what a recovery phrase means. Learn the risks of leaving funds with custodians. Learn why volatility exists. And most importantly, learn why this invention matters beyond price. Bitcoin may become a foundational layer of global finance, or it may remain a powerful alternative used by millions. It may reshape the way the world saves, settles, and transfers value, or it may simply force traditional systems to evolve. But regardless of where it goes, Bitcoin has already proven something historic. For the first time, human beings created digital scarcity that doesn't require a ruler. That is the heart of the Bitcoin Bible, a system built on rules instead of rulers, a ledger that anyone can verify, a network that runs without permission, a form of value that can be held directly by anyone, anywhere. Guard your keys, respect the risks, think long-term, and remember that the most important thing Bitcoin gives you is not a price chart, it's a choice.